to do a short series of videos on watercolour painting and watercolour painting some flowers that I've just picked up from my garden or from the hedgerows. But before I really start doing how to paint the flowers in watercolour, I'm going to just do a few kind of little practices to get us going. So what you're going to need for this is, I've done that on some watercolour paper, but actually what is also fine is, and I've used this before, is just some, what do you call this, lining paper. So this is heavy duty wallpaper lining, and you can get it from kind of shops like Wilko's, and for a big roll it's £4, something like that. And it's paper that's meant for painting on, so I just think it's great and it's nice and cheap. And you can use lots of it, that means, without kind of worrying that you're kind of, you know, not doing it too well. You can do lots and not worry too much. So before we kind of begin on the actual painting of some flowers, I'm going to have a little practice of doing some little techniques. The paints I'm using are, I've got these ones here. I've got a mix of them. So this is a selection of little round ones, and this is a pack. It's actually from the same company. I got them on the internet. They're called Koh-i-Noor. I've got it written there. I hope you can read that if you wanted to get them. These are very, very vivid, very bright colours, which sometimes good, sometimes they may be a bit too bright. So I've been having a little play around here. So I'm just going to really just show you what I'm doing here. So actually they're a little bit, sometimes you need to clean up your paints because otherwise darker colours can look. I'm just going to maybe clean up these paints a little bit first before watercolours do get kind of mucky. So just give them a little clean up. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, I've started here, I'm going to play around with my paints. So I'm going to do a little bit of yellow like that. I'm going to put some water next to it and watch it kind of bleed into it. Bit of the next colour. So that is a very vivid, lovely colour there. You can see that. And what you will see is I'm not actually blending it in like that. I'm just letting it go from one into the next. That's the thing with watercolours. They kind of do this bleeding in, and that is where the magic happens. Don't sort of destroy that by doing too much kind of working in. You've just got to let watercolour do what it does. I'm just going to go with this red now. Actually, that red that I've got there is a little bit brown. Not actually that keen on it, but well, now it's all kind of bleeding in, so I quite like that. I'm going to start again with the yellow here. Let's just lift that up and see how that goes in with other colours, like for example my green. So this green is not a very strong green. Put some water between them to allow that bleeding to happen. And I've actually got see, that is very much a strong bottle green there. Now what happens if I put some water next to that and just let that kind of bleed in to that water? Same there. Actually, on that side you get more of a lemony yellow. This is quite a kind of orangey yellow, cadmium yellow, going into quite a yellow lemon. So maybe there are different grades within your colours. Now the point of doing this is for you to get to know your colours and your paints. Everybody's paints will probably be slightly different, and also the way that you use them will be slightly different. So really you're learning your way to paint. I don't really believe in having a kind of prescribed way of this is how you do watercolour, because that ends up in quite dull, deadened kind of painting. I think you explore your way, which I know sounds a bit sort of scary, and what do you mean by that? But what I mean by that is experimenting and seeing what happens. Well, I've just put a bit of white there, but that's just bled in a rather exciting way. So it's kind of unpredictable, and I want us to kind of embrace that. And the more you do of this, the more you see what kind of happy accidents, and if you kind of know where the happy accidents happen, then you can kind of be a little bit not in control, but kind of know how to create the situation for nice bleeding type things to happen. What I do want to get across though is don't be tempted to do too much blending. Watercolour is not about that, it's more about a kind of floating. So if I put some water next to that, it's going to sort of float into that, and that's going to look great. I'm going to put a bit of yellow next to that. So I could happily play around like this for ages. And actually, another thing you can do when you've got your little sort of strips of colour that you've played with, you can create little collages out of that and put that kind of around your paintings. So, you know, it's not wasted. It's not wasted time doing this. So let's just start, before we actually do a painting, which I'll do on the next video. I'm going to draw a petal-like shape. So a couple of petal-like shapes there, okay? I don't know if you can see that. I'm just going to do that in a pen so you can see that a bit better. So there's two petal-like shapes. So first technique I want you to get used to is this sort of bleeding. Second technique is maybe wetting a space. Maybe not all of it, I'm leaving a kind of dry area in the middle. Getting a bit of colour and maybe just putting a little bit of one colour and then another colour in the middle. I'm thinking really of when I get to do this, that little Montbretia there. So a bit more of that one. And just a bit of brown and red there. So that's a kind of just a little practice. Again, no blending, just let it do its own thing. Right. The yellow, the orange, because it's so wet, just bleeds away, which is doing its own beautiful thing. Okay, so that is a really good thing to just practice doing, and do that as much as you can because you are learning your own language of watercolour painting. Okay, I will see you in video 2.